Hey there, Yacht Club Elite. Welcome to August's mini course, rich friends. My name is Jamie Dorshak, as Nicole was so nice to introduce me to you guys before. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, like I said. And look, I'm here. I have this anchor shirt on to join you guys in your fun theme here at the Yacht Club Elite. So I'm really excited to get this started. I have a value-packed lesson for you here already in lesson 1, so I don't really know how I'm gonna pack everything into the other lessons, but let's go. So today we're gonna be talking about the basics of copywriting. You're gonna learn what copywriting is, some great do's and don'ts for when you're writing your own marketing materials, and then we're gonna finish off by looking at some examples of some good copywriting and bad copywriting. And developing these copywriting skills is going to help you grow your business because you'll be able to create more effective marketing that generates leads and closes sales. Before we get started, I wanted to just tell you guys a little bit more about me. Like I said, thank you to Nicole for that lovely introduction post. I got my start in marketing when I was 18. I was a classical music performance major. I studied bass clarinet. That was my primary instrument. And I moved to Bern, Switzerland to study music performance at a music conservatory called the Hochschule der Künste Bern. It's like basically an art school. It means like University of Applied Sciences, which is not really what they do, so I don't know why, that's a translation. But anyway, while I was studying abroad, my visa didn't let me work, but just because I wasn't allowed to work didn't mean that I don't need money, right? So I decided that I would start some type of side gig that I could do online. Now, I was already making Let's Play videos, and if you don't know what they are, they're like you play a video game and you record yourself and you give commentary and stuff like that. So I was already doing Let's Play videos on YouTube, so I decided that it would be simple for me to learn how to make like basic animations, and I wound up starting a side business doing those whiteboard videos. If you've ever seen, like, there's a voiceover in the hand, like a hand is like drawing things. So that's how I got started. And through my whiteboard videos, I developed a relationship with an advertising agency based out of Trinidad called Pepper. And I had the opportunity to work on some really awesome projects with them. We've worked on a project for like a lottery company, which, those are maintained by the state in most countries. So we did another project for the Ministry of Education to promote like an online math site. And right now we're working on a third where we're helping the Caribbean Public Health Agency. So through my relationship with them, I've had the opportunity to touch some high profile projects that I might not otherwise have been able to be involved with. So that's kind of where I was like cutting my teeth in this marketing industry. Then I moved back to the States when I was like 20. And I was really interested in entrepreneurship, so I decided that I was going to start my own business. And I see that a lot of you guys are interested in subscription boxes here, so I'm among good company because my first business was a subscription box too. It was called Berg Box, and I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, so what I did was I would work with vendors to curate locally made products. So like maybe you would get some coffee beans or some locally made chocolate. I did one where I partnered with a local artist and he basically did like a takeover, you know what I mean? So we didn't even have our standard box. We had custom painted boxes, and then he designed all of the products that were inside of it instead of it being like usually it's from, 5 different vendors. So there was like a mouse pad and a cool, awesome t-shirt. But while I had a lot of fun with it, I don't know why I really thought that this would be a good business for me because I really hate mail. Like once, when you don't look at your mailbox for so long, I don't know if you go on vacation or something and then they plop that big box full of stuff right on your doorstep. So that's happened to me maybe 3 times since I moved back here, and every time it just enrages me. I'm just like yelling and throwing things, and I'm like, well, the mail, not other things, but I'm like throwing these letters. I'm like, who wants these? Why are you sending this? It's a waste of time. So I don't really know why I thought that I would be happy like with a business that's based around going to the post office. But anyway, I did build that company up and made a few $1,000s with it. I was promoting it through Instagram, and I was running monthly contests where I was giving away free boxes to generate leads. I actually got my company on ABC Action News. I can send you that if you wanted to look at it. And I also wrote about how I did that if you want to do something similar for your own business. And through this, I was learning all about email marketing and copywriting. But, eventually I realized that I was just spending a lot more time learning how to implement and execute new strategies than I really was spending, organizing with vendors, or like my business was a super hyper local business. So I was actually going in person a lot to markets. And like I said, I live in Florida. So there's really not a good season of the year to be standing outside for like 6 hours. And I never put on sunscreen. So was starting to kind of get to me after the first 6 months or so, because I was having a lot of success and I was really proud of myself. But like I said, I just don't think it was a good personality fit for my business. And unfortunately, on top of that, I didn't really manage the company very well. So what was happening was that every month, with Birchbox or something, they're always sending you makeup. So even though it's different makeups in there, they can always estimate, a lipstick is going to weigh so much and a mascara is about such and such. But I just had a variable sizes of different products, because sometimes there would be a mug and sometimes there's not. So really, the postage was just killing me after a certain point. And I was getting popular enough that I started to get orders from across the country, from Texas and California, places over there. And I actually even got orders from London. But, when people ordered from these faraway places, I was actually losing money trying to send them the package. So it was a really hard decision for me to come to, because I tied a lot of my identity to this business, which is why I think that Nicole's most recent advice about building something around your own name is really helpful, because it's true that when you do change your course, it can be hard, I think, to deal with losing that aspect of your identity that maybe people don't decide to end something soon enough. You know what I mean? And I did struggle with this decision, but I also, was really trying to be focused and moving forward in my path. So it was a little bit of an easy decision. But yeah, I closed that business, and instead I started focusing on building a portfolio of amazing work for my freelance clients. And now I just work with entrepreneurs all the time who amaze me. And I partner with really cool advertising agencies like Pepper, and another one is Symphony here in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I do contract work with them. And I just get to spend every day helping passionate, creative people like you tell their stories. And I really am so much happier being in my area of expertise here. So before we get into the lesson today, which there's a lot, I know that this is a little bit of an intro, but there really is a lot of content here. You're going to want to take great notes, and you're going to want to maybe even review this twice, because like I said, this is advanced marketing tactics. So I'm trying to cover a lot of ground with you in only four lessons. So what should you expect from this Yacht Club Elite mini course? I'm going to be doing 4 video lessons in August. I'm trying to release them on Wednesdays in the late afternoon or early evening, but I just bought a house, so sometimes between work and moving, well, I'm not moving yet, but I'm, contractors and stuff like that. It's a bad fixer-upper. There's not even air conditioning or anything. So, it's that type of, I bought a house, not I bought a turnkey thing. So, we'll see. Could be early evening / late evening on Wednesdays. But I want to be releasing the lessons on Wednesdays, so that the day after, on Thursday every week, we can do a live Q&A, you and me. And we can maybe review some of the stuff, or I can help you with more specific questions from the previous day's lesson. So with that being said, let's roll into today's lesson content. So today we're going to focus on building a foundation of what copywriting is. And somebody was so super smart enough to ask for this in the comments, so I hope that this will answer all the questions that you asked me there. I didn't want to answer you there because I knew I was making this video anyway, so I thought that this might be more appropriate and a more, full answer to your questions. So we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts in your writing. We're going to look at good and bad examples of copywriting. And in our future lessons together, like I said, we're going to do 4. So we're going to learn about email marketing. We're going to learn about creating engaging social media posts. And finally, we're going to learn about copywriting for advertising. And something that I wanted to maybe touch on a little bit was landing pages, because I think, well, first off, the lessons that are applicable to landing pages will also really help you with web copy, which I touch on very briefly in this video. But so I'm hoping to see if I can work it in somewhere, maybe in the final video, the advertising one. I might be able to incorporate that there. But I would like to talk more about landing pages and web copy. So I'll let you know, keep you updated if or where we're going to incorporate that. So let's get rolling. Let's learn what copy is. So what is copywriting? Copywriting is the art and science of strategically delivering a message to your prospects. And when I say message, it could be something that's written or it could be something that's spoken. Can you imagine how many sales you would make if you had your best salesperson working on getting new prospects 24/7? But think about paying somebody 24/7 by 365 would be extremely expensive, right? So the benefit of developing copywriting skills is that you can have your own paper salesman, or I guess now today it's like a pixel salesman, you know what I mean? But instead of sending a flesh and blood human being to be knocking on doors, instead you can convince people, you can create interest in your offer, and you can close leads with words instead. So copywriting is crafting a message. And honestly, I believe that everything is copy. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this video in a second. Something that Nicole mentioned in my introductory post is that I specialize in something called direct response copy. So what's the difference between direct response copy and plain old copywriting? Direct response, it's still the art and the science of delivering messaging, but when I am writing an ad or your web copy or your email series or your webinar script or your Facebook ad funnel, I am doing it to make the client take an immediate action as a result of what they're reading. So sometimes that action, it's usually a sale, but other times the action can be just to opt into something. It can be, we would strategize this out in our consultation sessions, because what I like to do is I build automated marketing systems that are organized around business goals that you and I have discussed and determined are vital to your business's health. So if you have a keystone product, a keystone course, but you have ancillary products around that, maybe you have lower price ebooks or things like that, I would be helping you to build a system that mainly supports selling the keystone course, because that is the most important thing for your business to continue going on, you know what I mean? But then, we always can also incorporate some of the other offerings as well. And sometimes they can be great tripwire offers to, a tripwire means that you can give somebody, they'll buy a $20 to $200 product before you try to ask them to get a $1,000 course or something like that. So the difference is that copywriters at ad agencies, a lot of, especially big ones, like McCann Erickson and all those people, they care a lot about winning awards. But direct response copywriters, they may never win awards, because you know what? You would be surprised at how ugly some of the stuff that works is. For example, something that I'm going to teach you through these videos, probably in the second one, is that I don't use templates in my emails. The reason why is because they don't help conversion. It distracts people from viewing your main message. But the other reason is that, if you have Gmail, you may have noticed that they have these new tabs now. They have social, promotional, and so on. So when you have a heavy graphical template, you're actually letting Google flag you to put you into this tab instead of going into what they call the main inbox. So like I said, that's why I stress text-based emails, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you. You can still incorporate pictures. It doesn't mean that you can't have pictures if it's appropriate to the message, but I would not recommend having a standard template, and like, it's not doing you any favors, and if anything, it's really only hurting you. So with all that being said, now let's talk about the do's and don'ts of copywriting, okay? So we're going to start with some do's. Number 1, do split test. The biggest secret is that copywriting is a process. No matter how much like market research you do or how good of an idea you think that you have, it just doesn't always go perfectly when you release it to your audience. So remember that copywriting is an art and a science. So the best copywriters are extremely humble, and no matter how much experience they have or how convinced they are that their favorite way is the best way, they're always experimenting to see if something else works better, okay? Number 2, do make a promise. In marketing, your brand promise is sometimes called the unique selling proposition, but if you put out a piece of marketing and you're not making a specific promise to the viewer about a benefit, then you're wasting your money, and also you're wasting their time because there's nothing in it for them. So that's a good way to know whether or not you have a promise. Ask yourself what's in it for them, or if you were pretending to be your client, you would say what's in it for me, and then read it with that frame of reference. So when you're trying to decide what your unique selling proposition should be, don't just pick your favorite. What you should do is you should brainstorm some promises that you think your brand could make that may be appropriate, and then you're going to dump those into a Google form. Underneath each promise, the client, I call it client facing, so the reader on the other side, they should be able to rank, like, you promise number 1, and then they should be able to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 in 2 separate categories, which I'll say in a second. But so it'll be like promise 1, thingy 1 through 10, thing 2, 1 through 10, promise 2, and 2 separate 1 through 10 scales under there. So they're going to rank it on importance and uniqueness. Okay, importance and uniqueness. Then you distribute the survey to your list, and you can review the results, and you want to see which promises rank high for both, and play around with creating marketing around those. So like if there's a clear winner, none of the other ones really scored that high, but one scored high in both categories, like you can just go ahead and go with that one. But if there's like 2 or 3 that are kind of close tied, you can experiment with creating messaging around those sample unique selling propositions. I would use like Facebook ads or some type of, like if you use lead pages or Unbounce, something where you can A/B test. You can also use something called Google Content Optimizer, which I think I'll talk about in a second. But you can Google that if you need a free way to do split test. Google Content Optimizer, it's in your analytics. So then, then you can create sample campaigns around these messages and put them out there into the world, and then you can collect data and see which one is performing actually the best. And so that's how I do things. I make all of my decisions on data based. I really love conversion rate optimization, so I have like a really analytical approach to writing copy. I don't consider myself to be at all similar to like a novelist or anything like that. I think of myself more, if anything, as like me writing, it's more like Dr. Seuss than like James Joyce, you know what I mean? So do survey and engage your readers. So see how we just talked about you shouldn't pick your favorite USP. You should ask your readers and find out what they think is the most important one. Perfect example of how you should approach all of your marketing. So the best copywriters in the world, when you read their ads, they'll have you saying like, wow, get out of my head when you read their stuff. Great copywriters are experts at being able to explain your problem to you in your own words, okay? So I hope to talk more in detail about using surveys, maybe in video 2, because like I said, that one's going to be on email marketing, and I do most of my survey distribution through email. But if you wanted to learn more about this, I highly recommend that you get a book called Ask by Ryan Levesque. It's kind of like the seminal tome, foundational way of how marketers are approaching demographic research and customer feedback surveys. So I definitely would recommend checking that out if you want to learn more about what I'm saying about surveys and you just can't wait till next week. Besides using surveys, another good way to get a feel for consumer language is to look at Amazon. So like whether you're in a product market or a consulting market, like if you're in a product, it's obviously a little more clear that you can look on Amazon for a similar product to yours and do like an apples to apples comparison. But even if you're a consultant, what you can do is you can look at like books and information products on your like in your niche on Amazon. And what you're going to want to do in either of these two situations is you're going to want to look at the user reviews. Don't read the BS page copy because that's probably written by somebody in India. So look at the user reviews. So, and you're going to want to look at the 5 stars and the 1 to 2 stars. You want to look at the two polar opposites. So you're trying to find out what people want from these products and what people hate from these products. So you can understand where you fit into the overall scheme of the market. You also could use forums like Reddit or, you know, like, I'll just say like there are specialty forums for a lot of different topics. So like marketing warrior forum, maybe you can find some complaints and stuff like that, or some raves of other information products there. You know, there's like chef talk, HVAC talk. I write a lot of content marketing strategy for local service businesses, so I wind up looking at these like weird forums. But Stack Overflow, that's another big one. That one is separated into a bunch of different categories. But yeah, if you can just find forums around your niche, you can start to look at maybe if people have been talking about other information products that they're buying. And if any of this is confusing and you don't know how that can literally apply to you, write me a comment, or, you know, keep in mind we're going to do a live stream tomorrow, so have your questions in mind for when we do that. Okay, so now let's briefly go over some copywriting don'ts. Don't be afraid of making something too long. Okay, one of the most annoying things for me is this idea of like everybody has a shorter and shorter attention span today. That's BS. That's total and complete BS, okay? Because look, say that you really like fashion or whatever. If I gave you like an economics textbook and I said I'll give you $100 if you read this economics textbook all weekend, you are not going to do that for $100, and you might not even do that for $1,000. You know what I mean? But if I was like, oh, can you go on Lookbook and put together some great outfits or some great, you know, pair all these outfits with a bunch of shoes and I'll give you $100 or whatever, you'd be like, yeah, you know? So the truth is that people, when they're passionate about solving the problem or they're passionate about that niche, they can consume unlimited amounts of content about that. And you and me, all right, listen to me, you and me, we're going to go over a example later in this video about a like good copywriting example. You're never going to be able to say, I think it's too long again, okay? Because it's not. Never say to me, Jamie, I think this is too long. Because you know what you should do if you think that it's too long? What you should do is split test it. Split test it, all right? So write it 2 different ways. Keep it the long way where you give as much information as possible. Because my perspective on copywriting is that you need to give the prospect all of the details. They need to be able, like, you need to understand what they need to agree to before they can feel confident buying your product. And if that's a lot of things, if you're, you know, they're in a completely distant gap from you, let's say they're like only lowly aware of their problem and you have like a very expensive solution to a problem, you're going to need to explain a lot more to get them to understand and believe that buying this product is the best thing for them. So a few ways of doing split testing. Like I said, if you're using like, you know, Lead Pages or Unbounce, something like that, these services, ClickFunnels, you often can do split testing inside of there. I use something called Thrive Theme Builder, like THRIVE, Thrive. check it out because it's like a drag and drop type of thing. It integrates perfectly with WordPress, and that one has like built-in split testing in the theme. Otherwise, like I said, you want to go to Google Analytics and you want to look up Google Content Optimizer Google Content Experiments. That's what they're called. And I hope that I'm going to put some directions in the comments on how you can find that in your analytics, okay? I'm going to try not to forget. Don't be for everybody. Get clear on your market. So if you're for everybody, then you're for nobody. And I see that in the past you've had some previous training, recent training, okay, it's recent. So if you've forgotten, maybe you should go review it. But I've seen that you have some previous training on understanding your target market's demographics and psychographics. So definitely review those lessons and understand, be sure that you understand how to get clear on your market, because what is copywriting? It's strategic messaging, and a key component of messaging is knowing who you're writing for. If you don't know that, then do not move forward. Do not move forward. You need to be getting asked by Ryan Levesque or researching how to do demographic research. You need to be getting this information from your list. When you're creating an individual piece of marketing, don't have more than one goal for it, okay? So like for some things, like a homepage, that's not entirely relevant, although we're gonna look at an example later in this video where this is extremely relevant. The homepage also only has one goal, but the problem is just that if you have like a landing page and you have 5 calls to action, then you're not going to get anything. If you have an email where you're asking for 6 different things, instead of doing 1, people are going to do none. If you don't get laser focused on what function each and every part of your system serves, then you're going to give your readers analysis paralysis. So instead of making 1 conversion, they're going to be too overwhelmed and just close out the page and do nothing. Don't talk about yourself. Don't say we or I, okay? People don't care about you. I care about you. But for the most part, people who like don't know about you don't care about you. What is it that they care about? Them. They don't care about you. They care about themselves, okay? So instead of fighting that, successful copy works with it. So if people want to hear about themselves, give it to them. Look through your business copy and see where you're creating self-directed sentences. So look for words like I, we, us, and see if you can rewrite it to change the pronoun to you. You, okay? That's going to be key. So for example, like a headline that reads, manage your inbox easily, that could be, you can finally manage your inbox easily. And this is also extremely, to make it you-led, is extremely effective in calls to action. It's called making it possessive. So you want to use you or my. So instead of having a generic button like submit, you would have a you-directed message and maybe change it to something like get my free report now. So that's the psychological logic behind why you see some of these phraseologies on people's websites. Don't speak just to hear your own voice. We talked about having only one goal for each piece of messaging that you send out. So if you have no goals, don't send it out. Don't waste people's time, because you're wasting your time, your money, and their time. So if you're giving them value, that's the purpose of the email. If you're promoting an offer, that's the purpose of the email. I'm not a fan of these like send a newsletter every month with some random BS, you know what I mean? Like if you're making, like say you have a weekly newsletter and you curate content and the purpose of doing that is to provide value, that's totally safe, you know what I mean? But like if you don't have a reason for doing it, don't. And finally, never use style guides. Like first off, if you're MLA and APA, those are for academic papers and not for selling. So definitely don't use those. But what I mean is Associated Press style, AP style. A lot of advertising agencies try to use this journalism format as a way to like give standardization to their content marketing, and like not that that's not important, But the problem is that AP style, Associated Press style, it's just a bunch of like BS nonsense. It's all of these asinine rules. Like, for example, you know, we all know Florida is FL, like Maryland is MD. We all understand states by either the full state names or by the 2-letter postal abbreviation. AP gives a finger to that, and they're like, oh, we're gonna make up these random 3-letter like abbreviations for all the states instead. And they're not, it's not even like, oh, Pennsylvania is PEN. They're not even 3. Some of them are like 4 and 5. They're not even a standard length. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how much BS it is. And then there will be rules like, oh, don't ever use the Oxford comma, except for when you think it will add more clarity, then use it. Like, so what rule is that then? You do this, except not when you feel like it? It doesn't make any sense. And what's the other thing that bothers me about it? It's just, I mean, it's just so inconsistent. Like, another rule, I had to learn all of these stupid rules, and I had to take freaking editing courses for journalists at like to work with a marketing agency, but we're not journalists. This is not even remotely appropriate to what we're doing. But another thing that they'll do is they'll be like, oh, when you're saying a city, you should always spell out the full name of the city, except randomly these 28 cities that we made up abbreviations for. And of course, like, often they're large cities, but you know, there are cities on there that are under 200,000 people as well. So it's just really like, it's not even a system of rules. Like, if you have a book this thick about all of the exceptions to your rules, is that really rules? No. But let me tell you, this is the real for real reason, other than the fact that it's a waste of time. The real reason that I hate AP style is because it calls for you to do things that make your content less legible. So for example, AP style calls you to write out numbers instead of using numerals. So they want you to say SEVEN instead of 7. This is stupid. Don't ever do that. This makes your copy difficult to read. And the reason why is that because when you're reading something, and particularly on screen, okay? Because like one of these weird editing courses, it referenced eye tracking studies. But here's what people don't understand. That's an eye tracking study for print, okay? Because people are not reading your things for print. When you're looking for relevant research, you need to make sure the medium is online. Dummies, not you guys, them. Like, so annoyed about this. But so the reason is that when you're reading online, your eyes scan before they read, and so your eyes will skip over blocks of text, and instead they're looking for something to get their hooks in, you know what I mean? So numbers break it up, using symbols like ampersands instead of ands, and you don't have to do that like every single time, but sometimes it's nice in a headline to use an ampersand instead of an and, plus signs instead of writing plus. Like, these types of symbols stop people's eyes and help them, their brains, even subconsciously, before they've even made a decision about whether or not to read your stuff, these are signaling to the people how difficult or not your copy is for them to read. So another thing about legibility is that you should, that's why they talk about using short paragraphs of 1 to 3 sentences, because when there's a big block of text, the eye skips over that. The eye perceives it as this is going to be dense material, difficult to read, you know what I mean, next. So I even find it extremely effective to use like 1-sentence lines, or sometimes even single word lines. You'll see that a lot in copywriting. And all of this is geared towards legibility. It's geared towards creating a slide. Joe Sugarman says that your copy should be like, think about it like Candyland. Like, they start here and you want to take their hand and lead them down till they buy it. So like we said, copy is everything. So that's why we're going to be looking at a variety of different types of media right now. I'm going to show you some commercials. Both these commercials, I believe, are television commercials. We're going to look at billboards, and we're going to look at some websites of entrepreneurs. So let's start with the examples of bad copywriting first. What I have for you is this first commercial is going to be one by Toyota, where they tried, I don't know if you've ever heard of these videos called bad lip readings, but it's pretty funny if you want to look it up and see what one of these is about. But Toyota's trying to use, borrowed reputation, borrowed coolness by partnering up with these bad lip reading people who are, I guess, pretty popular with millennials, and trying to apply that to their television commercial. So first, let's just take a look at what exactly that commercial looks like.
It sounds like your baby cow was along for the secret, blah, but she's at the ghost school. At the ghost school.
Alright, so that was the brilliant commercial that some of the most talented minds in advertising came up with for Toyota. So what's my problem with this? The reason why this is an example of bad copywriting is, first off, this commercial did not resonate well with the audience. As you can see, this is on the Toyota USA YouTube channel, right? Boop, there we go. It has 200,000 subscribers, but check this out. There's only 6,000, almost 7,000 views. So how do we know that that's a bad result for YouTube views on a commercial? I want to show you. We're not going to watch the whole commercial, but let's look at one commercial that I think is a good example of good copywriting, and you'll see the difference in video views. Look. So when you have a commercial that really, really resonates with the audience, and look, see as well, that actually Dove, what's interesting is Dove has even less YouTube subscribers than Toyota does at all. This is also their official YouTube channel. There, I'm hovering over it so you can see that. But check this out. This commercial has over 7 million views, 7.6 million views. I don't know if you've seen this one before, but there's like a forensic artist and women, like, they describe themselves first, and then they're partnered up with, these women were called here. They don't know why they're in this office or whatever. And then they describe themselves, and then they get partnered up with another lady, and then they're asked to describe that lady. And so now I'm just going to show you real quick. Here they're going to look at...
friendly and...
They're looking at both of the sketches of how they describe themselves and how the
I've come a long way in how I see myself.
See here?
But I think I still have...
So this one, where she's like a little fatter and rounder, this is how she sees herself. But this one, where she looks more like a, human being, that's how other people see her. So that's going to be the distinction between good and bad commercials on YouTube. So I really hate that Toyota commercial. Another example, it's a little hard to read, but another example of bad copywriting is this billboard for Chiquita bananas. It says, "Exit now for bananas probably." So think about what we just discussed in the do's and don'ts section earlier. We talked about always having a message, and that it's a waste of time if you're going to put out advertising that does not communicate a message or a benefit to the end viewer. So, I see this billboard as a complete and total waste of money. What is this communicating to people about the bananas? Does this make you want to go and buy their brand? Not really. I mean, I had a better example. Well, anyway, I can show you later an example of a better Chiquita banana billboard. But the reason why this is an example of bad copywriting is because there's no benefit being communicated to people. So let's check out this third example of bad copywriting. This one is by Charles Schwab. It's another television commercial.
You are Pomace. But one day, They want to be Raunak Bagatefs. And Schwab Intelligent Advisory can help them get there with a new approach to financial planning. To be Raunak Bagatefs.
So what's wrong with that commercial by Charles Schwab?
These two are poems.
What I see is wrong with it. It does communicate a benefit. What they're saying is, you can be here in your younger stage of life. You have a puppy before you have kids. We can help you get to your older, later stage in life, and you can be where you want to be, I guess. I don't know. At first, I feel like that's kind of a generic message. Like, I feel like every single investment agency's message is that, oh, you're not where you want to be, and we can help you get there. Like, great, thanks, brilliant Charles Schwab advertisers. But the other part, my girlfriend actually liked this commercial, but I find that these acronyms, this POME and this RENIC, whatever, Ralakagnagataf, whatever the F they're trying to say, this is only a 20-second commercial. So I just feel like the messaging is scatterbrained and unclear. And as far as whether or not people... I just don't recommend inventing acronyms unless nobody's going to understand what exactly it is when you just reference it right off the bat. But it's one thing if you're doing that and you're, giving a talk, a presentation, you have maybe a longer period of time to, joke around, haha, I made up this acronym, here's what it means, here's how it's relevant. But in a 20-second commercial, I think that it's just a little bit confused and a little bit too... trying to pack too much in there with two separate made-up acronyms. The problem with this commercial is just that overall they're trying to be too clever, and cleverness does not always translate into sales. What translates into sales is talking to people about the problems they have using terms that they use to describe their own pain. So let's move on to the examples of good copywriting now. I'm going to show you a couple of websites, and this one, which we're looking at right now, is actually, I would call it like a white paper or like a handout. This was a direct mail piece, I believe, that was sent to generate new leads for the Stansberry investment research newsletter. It's like, like Motley Fool, you can pay them money every month or every year to get their stock picks or whatever. So this is kind of the same type of service. And what I want you to pay attention to is right up here, how many pages does this say? This says that this piece of marketing is 39 pages, okay? So like we discussed before, don't be afraid to make your marketing as long as it has to be, because look, maybe I couldn't pay you $100. For $100, you would not sit in an economics lecture for an hour or 2 hours. But maybe you're really into shoes or outfits or fashion. I bet that I wouldn't even have to pay you $100 if I just asked you to read Vogue and look at, outfit of the day posts. I bet I could ask you to do that all day and you would be perfectly happy to do that. So it's not necessarily that the length is... When people say, attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and we need bite-sized content, that's just markedly and completely false. What's happening, and the reason why it appears that people have a shorter attention span, is because now we have the ability to segment ourselves off from information that we don't want to hear. And so our attention for information that's boring to us is extremely limited. But our attention span for information that we're excited about or passionate about, like in this example, these people are very, very financially conscious. You could read about it for an unlimited amount of time. So I just wanted to show you this because this generated hundreds of thousands of subscribers for this particular investing newsletter. This is actually one of the most famous copywriting pieces in history. We actually studied this one in one of the courses that I did. So don't let anybody trick you or deceive you into thinking that shorter is better, because it's not. And you'll notice that while people are telling you that shorter is better, they're telling that to you in an article that's maybe like 1,000 words or so. So I just believe that people, or, alternatively, they're telling you that in a video that's maybe like 6 to 10 minutes, or they're telling you that in a podcast that could be 10 to 30 minutes to even 1 hour. So I think that these people are maybe trying to mislead you a little bit, and that they want to keep all of the goodness for themselves, because long form content works. It has always worked in the past, and it's still working today. The only difference is that now people don't have a shorter attention span. People are just now increasingly more picky about how they're going to spend their time. So you need to work harder to make your marketing, instead of marketing, that it is content and that it's delivering some type of value. Maybe we could scroll down here. You could just see how enormously long this is. Maybe we can get to the call to action. Here, see? So right here on page 39, you can look at some of this verbiage here. In other words, by taking me up on this offer, you are agreeing only to try my work to see if you like it. Offer. When you see offer, that's when you know that this is actually a marketing piece and not a standalone piece of content. And I mean, this one has a link, but before, when it was distributed as a direct sales letter, there was like a little tear off that you could mail back. So now I wanted to take a look at some popular websites in the business niche with you, so that we could see how you can apply the concepts of copywriting even to places that you might not think would be relevant. But yes, copywriting helps you even with your website. So the first thing that I can tell you about John Lee Dumas's website is that he has done a very good job of peppering this entire page with calls to actions. There's pop-ups that happen. I think that I already, I don't know how to make these go away. I think I already went through the email pop-up, so I'm not sure that it's going to come back. But so you can just see here, I wanted to show you everything that he has on his webpage while you scroll down. So what's good copywriting about John Lee Dumas's website is that this has what we call in copywriting a hierarchy of calls to actions. So here we can see in the corner, this email pop-up came up, and like I said, I think that it happened already and I closed out of it, so I don't think it will come up again. But initially there was a full screen page email opt-in, and then this one is popping up on the side. So what a hierarchy means is that John here, he has some actions that he wants you to take that are more important to him than other actions. So he really wants you to get on his email list. He's asking you twice. He's asking you once in a full screen light box, and he's asking you again in subsequent email pop-ups. But on the actual structure of the web page itself, not counting that first opt-in, what is the most important goal, the most important action that John wants you to take is to subscribe to his podcast. Why does he want you to subscribe to his podcast? Because there, he controls the whole sandbox. He can push, like we saw down here, he has these Freedom Journal, these Mastery Journals. Pretty much he has an advertisement at least once per podcast episode talking about how you can buy these books of his physical products. And as well, he usually will advertise these free courses, which are lower down the page. He'll put a bumper in his podcast as well about advertising those. So the reason why he wants you to go into his podcast is because that's his hub, if you will. Through his podcast, he's pushing you out to his other offers besides his email list, which we can see is what he values the most because, like we said, he's asking for it twice. And but what's interesting to note is that we scrolled down here, and here it starts all the podcast episodes, right? So we're saying that his podcast is the most important call to action as far, not counting the email. But why does it keep happening? But you can see here, he did not put the podcast directly underneath of this, website splash banner image at the top. Why is that? That's because John is valuing you second from listening to his podcast, which, let's just look, what page does this open up? Okay, so when you click on the drop down, it's having you find apps. And I did not realize that he has his own app for his podcast. That's pretty cool. But he is linking you out to a variety of places where you could subscribe to it himself. So that's what's going on there. But rather than have you go and listen to, let's talk, why wouldn't John want you to listen to the podcast on his website second? Why isn't it right under this banner image? That's because when you follow this first call to action to get to the podcast, he has an opportunity to get you to become a repeat listener. With Apple Podcasts, you can get push notifications potentially about when this stuff comes out. It's going to be right there on your phone. You probably have your podcasting app on your home screen, so it has what Gary Vaynerchuk calls prime phone real estate. Why wouldn't he want you to listen to the podcast on his website? Because on his website, even though he has these email captures, there's not a built-in way for you to listen to more than one episode. So on his website, he needs to rely on you to take the action to either listen to a second podcast, or he needs to rely on you to close the website and come back to it next week. People are lazy, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way. I mean to say that in a way that, of course, you're most likely to take the course of action that has the least friction against it. So what's easier for you to do? Which are you more likely to do? Are you going to remember to open John's website next week for the next podcast episode? Or are you going to remember to listen to the next episode when it's automatically downloaded on your phone? So this is copywriting as well. It's not just knowing who you're writing for. It's not just the actual words on the page. It's the strategizing of these hierarchy of calls to action. It's figuring out psychologically what people are more or less likely to do. And also it's organizing these different elements so that they best support your business goals. So that's why instead of having these podcasts here, he has his physical products, which cost you money. Underneath, he has this separate pop out for what looks to be some type of white paper. It looks, let's check it out. We're checking it out. What the, all right. What happens? All right. So that's clever. This little pop-up, which sounds like a white paper, that's actually a third at this point call to action to join the email list. Although if you think about it, it's actually second in what you're exposed to. It's just because I scrolled down so fast that one that popped up in the bottom right came up. The first one is the full screen splash. The second is actually this button that seems like it's opting in to get a white paper, but as we see, it's actually just pulling up this email subscription thing. And then the third one is the one that pops up at the bottom, which we saw, that's the one that comes in the right. So underneath of his paid products, obviously John would prefer for you to pay him money than to get value for free. But, barring that, you can still get your value for free, because for John, and for anyone, Nicole will tell you this as well, people who are going to invest their time into taking these free courses, they're going to become, really engaged fans of yours. They're going to be able to get a lot of value from you. And when people go through these types of courses where they're interacting with your expertise a lot, you become a consistent source of value to them. You can become somebody that they, your prospects look to for constant improvement. And then finally, he has these income reports pop up, and now we're starting to get more about directing you to other places on the website than asking you. And as you see here, there's several different, he has these side advertisements for the Freedom Journal and everything like that. So it's obvious that his main goal from this page, first goal is to have you subscribe to the podcast. Second goal is to have you buy his physical products. And third goal, I'd call that catch-all everything else. Whether you want to engage with his brand more through these free courses, or whether you want to continue on to other aspects of the website. But like I said, keep in mind that as you're scrolling here down to the bottom, you have this Freedom Journal and this Mastery Journal staring you right in the face as side advertisements still. So he is optimizing even the real estate at the bottom of the screen. He's still promoting his secondary call to action. So now we're going to take a look at Pat Flynn's. And I just wanted to point out to you, look at how Pat describes himself. Build an ethical business fueled by passive income. Whereas John was saying more things like, you know, set your entrepreneurial career on fire. It really makes me angry when people, if I don't know, you're in an argument with somebody or whatever, and they'll say like, oh, that's just semantics. You're just worried about semantics. As though it's some type of write-off. You know, to me, semantics is everything. You know what they say? The phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So don't think it's just semantics. Think semantics are everything. And not just that, semantics are how you can distinguish yourself. Pat and John are both two figures in the same space, two large figures, and they can set themselves apart from each other by using these semantical differences to their advantage. And the thing is that however you're drawn to describing your business and your progress, that is going to attract other people who think in that same frame as you do. So let's take a look at Pat's website. You'll notice that a lot of these websites are all going to have a start here type of thing. Pretty standard. Let's see where his goes. Okay, so this is a menu. And he's bringing you to a blog post, it looks like. He's bringing you to a combination of Smart Passive Income episodes. Then his about, and I am not quite sure why he would want you to be looking at these things, but I would just assume that, like, Pat, I think is really about building him, like, one of his goals is really focusing on building himself, Pat Flynn, as a figure in the business community. So I think that that could be why you're seeing that there's two about me and about my business type of sections. What happens when we click on this button? All right, you know, that's cool. I feel like that's kind of his business why page, actually, so I find that a little bit interesting. You'll notice that he has the income reports here in the top right, as does John Lee Dumas. So and I'm not sure the exact marketing reason why, but I guess that these income reports have been really providing powerful results for them because they are focusing it with real estate in the menu bar. So the first goal actually of Pat's website that we can see here is that he wants you to buy his book, which that makes a lot of sense, you know, rather than point you to his podcast necessarily where you can get value for free. His first ask of you is to point you towards a paid resource. Now these look like they are different. Yeah, so Pat, I guess, is really into keeping you on his own website, which I find interesting because he's not, oh, right. Well, so some of these are linking out to, you know, PDF downloads, and I think that so eventually you have to do a few clicks, but eventually you can get to, I call it like a sort of brick wall, if you will, where you need to provide information to get access to the content. But I think that Pat must really like to have this keeping people engagement on his website, having long sessions on page, because that type of stuff can help you with SEO. So maybe a business focus for him is help just trying to distribute himself better through organic results. Then we see here he has, you know, an email opt-in, and again he's focusing on pushing you out towards other other posts on his website. So Pat's homepage is extremely geared towards increasing the average session time on his own website. See, because I bet this button will also take you to a book club. All right, well, so see, here is another example. Like he just really seems to have this thing where he likes to have people click away 1 to 3 times until you enter your email address. So this here is like a landing page for that aspect of it. Let's look at Gary Vaynerchuk's website. I think I might have to refresh it actually. Well, there used to be this red icon up in the top left of his menu that had like a weird arrow, and it said start here and click here to start. So I was going to point that out to you, but I guess that it's not there now. Just was a little curious to see.
Welcome to Larry King Now, our special guest.
Okay, so what Gary's doing here is he wants you to build credibility with you. He's having an interview with Larry King, who obviously is a long-standing figure. And this is clicking you out to his Gary Vaynerchuk YouTube channel. And see, he has his little emblem down here. So his goal for this website is to get you out to his YouTube channel. That's his first primary call to action up there. His second call to action, which I find interesting, is to have you subscribe to his email list, which, normally I'm all about that. That's like a good first or second call to action to have. But I just find it interesting because Gary does not historically use email that often. He doesn't talk about using email marketing strategies that often in his presentations. And he's actually mentioned before in previous interviews that something that he wants to work on is that he doesn't do enough with email marketing. So all I can see is that this is him gearing up to do something better with email marketing, and that's why he'll have it as the secondary call to action, which is it's actually the first call to action if you don't wind up clicking on that video. He has an about here. He has another video, which I think will, yes, so link out to his YouTube channel. So that is a theme here. He seems like he is really focused on getting people from this website to other social platforms where they can engage with him, and particularly focused on the YouTube channel, which makes a lot of sense when you hear about him speak about his own marketing initiatives, because he has the Ask Gary V show, which the Gary Vaynerchuk audio experience is just a rip of the audio from those YouTube videos, as well as his Daily V, where he is putting out daily vlog content. So he's putting a lot of his production focus on YouTube, so that makes a lot of sense why he would be focusing on pushing people out to YouTube from the website. He has really a surprising amount of written content on his website because, as he'll tell you himself, he can't string 2 sentences together. I find it interesting that these are above this stay in touch with me thing where he's linking you out to all of his other social media, because he's not updating these super frequently. But here's some interesting copywriting. Note that this says read this instead of blog posts or recent blogs. Like, this is what I mean when I say that, semantics are really everything, and you would be surprised how little you can change, like, okay, read my story instead of about Gary. Like, you can change these even small calls to action to be optimized for conversions instead of just leaving it, like, would this be so Gary if it just said blogs? No. And then down here, like we kind of saw before, he has this events click out, which is pretty interesting. He wants you to come and interact with him in person, but this makes a lot of sense here that he is linking out to all of these platforms because he is primarily a social media marketer. And like I said, the only thing surprising to me is that this just isn't higher up in the chain here. And then at the bottom, we have his events, and we have his contact up there. I really wish that I could, I wish that this stupid red arrow came up, because I wanted to point that out to you, but I don't know why it's not doing that. Let's check out. This one is by Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. So I wanted to show you this one because it's a really, really different layout than some of the other ones that we have looked at already. Obviously, the primary goal is for you to take this quiz that he has. So I mentioned earlier the Ask method by Ryan Levesque. You'll see that this actually is an Ask method formatted quiz. So I highly recommend that you check out that book, Ask by Ryan Levesque, if you want to learn more about this. But so the reason why Ramit has this as his first call to action is because at the end of this quiz, you give your email address. And Ramit especially, I know, does a lot of sales on the back end, which means in emails. So that would make a lot of sense why his primary call to action is to get the email address. Oh, that's extremely interesting. The only thing that he wants from you is to do this quiz. So finally, I wanted to show you this page by Noah Kagan. We're going to look at 2 pages by it, but this is an idea that you can use for your own website. It's called the conversion optimized homepage. So instead of going to like thedoerco.com or yourwebsite.com, and it's like more laid out like John's or Pat's, that it has like a primary, secondary, tertiary call to action. Instead, some people like to use their homepage as a single focus point of conversion. So for Noah Kagan, that single goal is to get people onto his email list. There's nothing else. There's no other option that you can click here. And above the fold, that's like without, what you can see before you scroll down, that's called above the fold. So above the fold, there's actually nothing that you can click. You can't click to close this. This OK Dork by Noah Kagan logo is not even clickable. So the only option that you have is to either sign up for his list or scroll down or close the page entirely. And so when you do, he has a little bit of social proof here, founder of Mixergy.com. I'm sure that some of you are at least familiar with that tool, and maybe somebody who is who has accolades from the founder of Mixergy.com, maybe that means something to you, even if you don't know who Noah Kagan is. Finally, I just wanted to show you his blog, because he talked about how he has restructured his website so that he would see more people reading the posts. So you'll notice that this is a very plain looking website. He took away all sidebars, he took away all email opt-ins, he took away any side content, all imagery. The menu only has 4 options. It doesn't have as many options as some of the other menu bars that we've seen. And so here again, what decisions do you have to make? You can either engage with the content, which draws your eye because everything else is white, and the only thing that has a strong color are these header images of these blog posts. So your eye is drawn to them because against a stark white background, the only concentrated dots of color are these 2 right here. And if you don't want to do that, what else could you do? Well, you could read, you have an email pop-up. That's great. Look here, this is interesting. He's using an emoji in the opt-in. You can see he's using 2 emojis actually. So, experiment with some emojis in your business messaging, but also your emails, I would say. And you'd be surprised to see how effective including emojis in the subject line of your emails really is. But it's just cool to see that a big name like Noah Kagan, he comes from Facebook. He was like employee number 30 at Facebook. So he knows what's up as far as social is concerned. So what could you do if you didn't want to click on his content? You can read this like really, really tiny blurb, but it's really only like 3 sentences, so you're not going to spend too much time doing that. And probably your eyes will already skim it as you go, this page loads, you're going to acknowledge that there's a block of text at the top, and immediately our eyes are going to scan to the next thing, which is, these headers here. So if you weren't interested in either of these two blog posts, you could click one of like 3 options and see what's interesting. Is he has this podcast one that's green while the others are gray. So that means that if you don't want to read his blog, the second thing he would rather you do is to listen over here to his podcast. And I just wanted to see what that page looks like. Bullet points. That's great. He has the same as John, links out to where you can subscribe to get recurring notifications before he lists the actual episodes to listen to them on the website. And I'm just curious, if you go to one of these links on his personal site, does he also have link outs to the Apple Store and everything here? Let's look. It's nice that he's writing articles around his podcast episodes. Sorry, I was just curious to see if he asks you to sign up for it on Apple, like Apple or anything like that. No. So I think that if I were consulting with Noah, something that I would tell him is, look, if you want to grow your podcast audience, one underutilized opportunity that I've found is that on your podcast pages on your website, you don't have a call to action to link out to Stitcher, to link out to Apple Podcasts as you do on your initial podcast page. So that means that you're losing out on asking people again to make the decision to receive recurring updates from you. That's just a missed opportunity. But yeah, otherwise, what he's done by stripping away everything is he forces you to make a decision. Do you want to interact with this content, or do you want to leave? And if you want to leave, I think that Noah's fine with that. But if you're somebody who could potentially be interested in interacting with this content, obviously this is structured in a way that that's the most important thing for him. If you're the type of person who's going to be interested in this content, we need to get you there as fast and as simply as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in, rich friends. I hope that you got a lot of value out of today's lesson. Remember that tomorrow I'm going to hop into the group and do a live stream Q&A, our first of 4. So I am going to make a Google form where you can submit your URLs to me for review, and I'm going to put that in the text that goes with this video. The form does not exist yet, so I also need to remember in my infinite list of to-dos that I have to do that too. So Nicole said that you guys like homework assignments, so I'm going to give you some in our lessons, all right? So here, let's talk about your first homework assignment. Part 1, I want you to add me on LinkedIn, okay? I'm going to put a picture of it in the doobly-doo. It's going to come up right here. I want you to look me up, Jamie Dorshuk, Dorschuk, on LinkedIn, and add me so that we can stay connected, all right? And secondly, your homework assignment today is to review your website and look for self-directed sentences like we talked about in our do's and don'ts section, okay? So you're going to want to look out for I, we, us. Those are some tips that you're talking about yourself and you're not talking about the client, which, just in this organization, I'm not sure anymore which one is you and which one is the other person. But so if you're talking about you, it's a good sign, I, we, us, that you're not talking about the client, okay? So try to change that to you. Try to make it client-directed instead of self-directed. So give that a try, and if you're confused, you can always, like I said, ask me in the comments or join me on tomorrow's live stream Q&A, okay? So I will update you with more information on exactly when I'll be able to do that tomorrow, because like I said, I just bought a house, and today I don't have a lot of appointments, but tomorrow I have like a day full of appointments, so I need to kind of look at my schedule and touch base back with you to figure out when we're going to be able to do that. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to hop in here for like 15 minutes and answer all of your questions, okay? Thanks, guys. Thank you again for You're warm welcome, and some of you have added me on Facebook, so I'm excited to make all of these new friends. So I look forward to the rest of our time together this month, all right?